Welcome to Healing Voices Project, where we share stories of addiction, grief, recovery, and courage. And also from people who work every day in the field of substance abuse who discuss their experiences and advice. I'm Mike Torville, your host. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Healing Voices Project. We have another show for you and another guest. Today, we have my friend Clay Hampton with us. Clay is an actor, and also, and I'll read this to you because there's a lot to it, Clay works for the Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services in Connecticut, otherwise as the DMHAS, which is dmhas.org, correct? It's a branch of the state of Connecticut, an intercommunity, private, non-profit health facility, federally funded program, correct?
That's correct.
All right, I'll make sure I got that right.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, Clay. Appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Now, more about what you're doing. I mean, the purpose is to therapeutically assist people in early, mid, long-term recovery by addressing their vocational and educational needs. The program spans over 20 Connecticut cities, so it's all over the state of Connecticut.
That is correct.
And as a mobile employment support specialist, your specialty is working with those with opioid addictions. Thanks for coming on today. You got a lot to talk about, you know?
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah.
Just one note, the actual, my region is actually just my one region. There's 5 of us who do this in the state.
Oh, really?
Yes, there's 5 of us. Only 5. And we cover by region. We cover the state of Connecticut by region. And so my region is region number 4. Mm-hmm. And in my region, it's over 20 cities. So that I actually have to cover.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So your region is more central Connecticut and Hartford?
It's more central, yes.
Okay, so
correct.
you have Hartford, which is the biggest city.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And equally, it extends up to right here with the borders. I'm going north and going east. It extends on the borders of Massachusetts.
Okay, so you're
get some
going all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, also in addition to your work, and we're going to talk about your work, obviously, that's why we're here, but you also, you're an actor.
Yes.
Yeah. Hollywood guy, right? Here we are, yeah. And, you know, you're an actor. You've done a lot of other things. You have a lot of different interests. But how we met is because of your acting. So back in 2019, which, believe it or not, is almost 3 years ago. It was in June of 2019. We were making the Jack Jonah movie. Jack Jonah was a son of a good friend of mine, Kirk Jonah. And Jack passed away in April of 2016. And since then, his dad, Kirk Jonah, has been speaking at schools. He started the Jack Jonah Foundation, and we did a movie with JC Films to talk about Jack's life and how to show the effect on families. And so I think we did a lot with that, not only in getting the message out there, but getting the community involved. We had a lot of people locally in Western Mass, Connecticut, who came from the Hartford area. And I remember that day because it was kind of funny because we had hundreds and hundreds of people auditioning. We did it at the West Springfield High School. And we had all these parts, and we had this one character that we were thinking about, sort of having an athlete, you know, and we were basing it on the Chris Herron story. Chris Herron played basketball for the Celtics, and we were sort of basing it on that. We said, you know, we'll kind of do this and have a basketball player and somebody, a professional athlete who, you know, has a problem with addiction and what happens after that. And we said, do we have a basketball player, baseball player, football player? And we're still waiting for people to audition. Clay walks in, and we go, football player. That's where it ended up. I said, oh yeah, because you played football.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. And after that, I think we checked off, okay, you got the role. And so you became part of the Jack Jonah family and part of the Jack Jonah movie. And that was filmed in the summer of 2019. And I think it would debuted or premiered in November of 2019. So we've been talking ever since then.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
Ironically enough,
Yeah.
just to add to the story,
Mm-hmm.
I almost didn't show up that day, and so it was
You were
like
one of the
it was
last
like
guys
one
there.
of the last people
Yeah.
to actually go in.
Yeah.
And the only thing that really prevented me from not leaving was the I call her my agent, but the person who actually provided me with the information would have just been all over me. So I said, let me just go in. I'm probably the last one. They probably won't even take me anyway. But I remember going in. I remember signing all the paperwork, and I'm waiting to go in. And then as I'm walking in, let's go right this way. This is where the auditions are. As I'm walking there, someone says, Brian. Someone screams out, Brian. Now, I'm very meticulous with my work, so I did some research on all the characters. And so Brian just happened to be the football player. But I had researched a couple, but I knew the Brian because I was so familiar with it.
Yeah.
So I turned around, and I'm not sure if it was you or if it was Mr. Jonah. I'm not sure, but someone said Brian, and I knew what he was talking about. One thing led to another. Ultimately, I went and auditioned for the part and got it, but it was just, and then on top of it, I just started this position a year before. So I was fully entrenched with the intricacies of addiction and then people who had been accomplished and who had been athletes, who had been doctors and authors and so forth in functioning.
And that certainly gave you a personal connection
to
it. Yeah, and you played a professional athlete who played for the Patriots. It's a fictional character, but the point was there. Yeah. So you've been in this field for a while, for 4 years now. Anyway, yeah.
I've been in the social work field, mental health, behavioral health disorders, for 8 years. But I've been doing this position for about 3 years.
Okay.
About 3.5. Well, about 3.5 years now.
Yeah. So let's talk about that and what you see every day. I mean, you have a lot of things to say. What a typical day like? I know what you're going to say. Well, there's no day that's typical, but tell us a little bit about the program. And again, I'll mention it. It's the dmhas.org, just to make sure that if anybody wants to find out about it in Connecticut, a little bit about what your job is and how you help people through addiction and some of the programs.
Sure. So we call it DMIS. We just abbreviate it and make it one word. But it's Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. And so I work for a mental health facility, as you mentioned, Intercommunity. Yeah. It's a private nonprofit. So I work through Intercommunity, and I work that position for the actual state, which is a federally funded position. So I actually have 3 bosses. So the thing of it is that it works in a sense of the actual position itself is designed to help people to actually who are in recovery to actually be able to kind of get back some of the things that a lot of them feel that they've lost, they'll never have again.
Somebody who's in recovery, is there criteria? Like, you have to have been in recovery for so long, and at what point would somebody qualify for this program?
It would be early recovery, mid recovery, late. Late. I'm talking about been in recovery for a while.
Okay.
So they all fit into the category of me being able to assist them. The one criteria that they would need to have is they would need to be in a DMIS funded facility. Okay.
I mean, be in there. Be is part of a program, or
they would need to be part of, like, say, they were receiving therapeutic service from, say, like Intercommunity. They would need to, that's a mental health facility, behavioral health. It's a one-stop gap, really. They provide all types of, medical care. But that is a facility that's funded by the state of Connecticut or DMIS, Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services. It would also there's also hospitals that are DMIS funded. There are also residentials, shelters, recovery centers, treatment centers. They're all, a lot of them are DMIS funded. So they would have to be receiving some type of service or attending or staying there and being
to be eligible.
To be eligible.
And does it cost them anything?
There is we take all types of different insurance. There is a cost, but as you might imagine, They try to make it as accommodable for them
Yeah,
financially
that's
speaking
why
as
if
possible.
anybody's interested,
Yeah.
like if I want to participate in the program, they'd want to know how it might be covered.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And there are some places that they only receive funding from certain areas, private funding or so forth and so on. But this is not the case.
So as an example, let's say, and I hate to use the word typical. I don't like that word. But if you were to say, for lack of a better word, a typical person going through the program, how would it work for them, and what can they see as a progress throughout the program? And,
Excellent question. Normally, I run seminars and groups for inpatient clients who are in like detox facilities or treatment centers before like they get out. They're in 28-day programs, 60-day programs, or 90-day programs. And one of the things I talk to them about is the question you just asked. What is it can I do? And what I always tell them is, I don't actually know what I can do for you until I start working for you. Because the actual position is designed to be able to provide for them structure, vocationally speaking and educationally speaking. So what I'm trying to do is to be what I can for that particular client. One particular client is always going to be different from another, and another, and so forth and so on. So what I try to do is I sit down with each client that I'm working with. Initially, we have something called a career consultation, and we sit down and we talk about some of the barriers that they've encountered, some of the needs that they have, maybe some of the phobias. We have to mention that most people who have addictions, more than likely, they have some type of behavioral disorder or mental health issue. So we talk about that too. Those things are discovered and try to be diagnosed. Once we ascertain those things, then we formulate how we can structure and make a plan to help them vocationally. If they don't have a high school diploma, we help them with a high school diploma. If they've already been involved with a career, and yet that career was akin to them actually being in their addiction mode, it's probably not a good idea for them to go back in that career.
If it's going to add additional exposure to what your history, right?
If a person is an addiction of alcoholism,
Yeah.
I'm not going to help them find a job at a bar. Right.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So my thing is that's an analogy I use a lot, but as you understand,
right.
I'm going to help them to the best of my ability to develop a structure. Right. It's been statistically known that helping people in recovery with structure is one of the best things you can do. In fact, when we talk about people in recovery, we talk about the 12-step program. What is one of the 12 steps? Having structure. Having a plan, having an actual course that you follow on a regular basis. One of the 5 most important things that help structure one's life is employment and education. Those are the 2 things. I said 1, but those are 2 things.
Yeah, those 2 things are big. Yeah.
Very big.
And you think about, we talked earlier, and you said somebody in the program, that one of the first things you do is you find a way to separate or remove from the prior environment. And besides separate from a prior employment they might have added to the problem, you separate them locally, meaning if they were, you just have to remove from that environment, but otherwise the temptation's there, and all those things come back. I've heard it so many times, to disconnect from all that influence, right? So you do the best you can with that.
I don't actually do that. That's something that the people, the therapists, clinicians, caseworkers, probably at that facility, they're working on that. So, it goes back to how great this particular position and how great this opportunity for people in recovery is, because I'm mobile. I go within my region. I go to them. They don't have to be at a certain house for me to work with them. They don't have to be in a certain area for me to work with them. I go to them. I move around. I try to be as pliable as possible. So the goal when they established this position was to actually be able to be very pliable, to be able to meet the needs of the clients.
Where they are.
Where they are.
Yeah.
because so many of them are disenfranchised. So many of them are, without transportation. So many of them are without funding. Many of them are without roofing and housing. So my job is to go where they are, to help them, and to try to use a biblical example, like Apostle Paul said, to be all things to all people. So I try to. It's so hard for me to sit down and say, yeah, I do this, and do this, because there's no one person that I do the exact same thing for. Do I do job coaching? Absolutely. Do I help them with the resume? Do I do mock interviews with them? Do I sit down and go over with them what might be the best thing to wear on an interview? Do I sit down and go over with them etiquette? Right? But then there are clients that don't know how to read. They're computer illiterate. Those are the things.
The skills that you'll teach.
The skills that I teach. And the key word, you just mentioned it, is teaching. Helping, teaching, educating, inculcating knowledge where needed. Maybe a person might have a certain amount of knowledge. Maybe a person doesn't know how to read. Now, I'm not even using that as an analogy. This has literally happened to me more than once. A person may not know how to read, but they'll know how to read the specifics of some type of tool or piece of machinery that goes in a missile. They may not know how to read, but they'll know how to go ahead and figure out a blueprint. You see? So how does one go ahead and be able to relate? Because it's all about relating to the client in order to help them first. How does one go about helping them say, hey, we need to help you learn how to read, but you know more about schematics and you know how to go ahead and build things that I couldn't even, I'd be lost.
Well, I can understand that, because even, I can read, but it's what you're interested in. Because, for example, even at work, I might read some legal documents. All of a sudden, I have no ability to understand it. It's gone. I'm like, I don't even know what I just read.
Right.
Because it's not of an interest. It's not something that I'm focused on. But you're right. When you have a focus on something that, one, you're interested in, you enjoy, but all of us are where we tune out. But I guess there's a tuning into something, right? And you find that. You focus on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And great point that you made there. But also I find it's a fear. It's a fear that a lot of them have of the change. I'm so used to operating.
Unknown, you mean?
That they don't, it's the unknown for them because they haven't done it. So some people are comfortable in misery. In fact, let me go a little bit, let me extrapolate on that. Most people who have an addiction, they're comfortable with that addiction. They don't like it, but they know it. They're familiar with it. And so the problem for them isn't getting clean. They want to get clean. But the problem for them is the transition from getting where they are as far as addiction to the point where they are clean. That transition part is the change, and that change is what they fear. Sometimes that change can be physical, right? Sometimes that change can be mental. It is always emotional.
And I think with that too, you'd find an uncomfortable environment with strange people, because again, you want to disconnect from the group of people that had the influence during the addiction. Strange environment, different rules, different expectations. It's all that uncertainty and discomfort that can make somebody say, yeah, no. But I'm sure we love to hear success stories, and I'm sure if you have some success stories you want to share, because then you can say, look, people do, as much as that fear exists, overcome that fear, and have the courage. We talk about courage a lot, but getting past that is so much easier said than done. So anyway, I'm rambling, but you have any success stories you want to talk about, how someone went through the program and came out through the program that you coached them through?
Wow, it's funny you mentioned that. I was thinking you might ask me that question. I have so many success stories. One that comes to mind, since we're on this topic, was a person who was illiterate. He was illiterate, he couldn't read, and he was I don't want to say elderly, but he was middle aged. He was in his 60s, And he
I'm in my 60s. I'm not older.
Wow, hey,
Come on.
Yeah, I was trying to use a politically correct term. I was walking an eggshell.
You were careful, but that's okay.
But yeah, he
Yeah,
had been
yeah.
a chef. He had been a prep cook all his
Yeah.
life. I'm talking 30 years, and some of the places were really prestigious, really renowned in the area. But a lot of these places no longer existed. Pandemic hit, and the reason why he tumbled is because his longtime partner passed away, and that was it. He just fell off the proverbial wagon, and so he went into rehab. Came out, was at an actual transitional house that I happened to be going to. Started working with him. And he just had this negative perspective of, man, all these other people in the house with me, they're working. And I'm just too old, because he was the oldest person there. I'm just too old and I can't do it. And I don't know anything about a computer. I don't know anything. I've never used it. I don't even have an email address. Mm-hmm. So he just was really, we talked about that fear. Very, very afraid of change and hesitant. Went through a whole lot of setbacks as far as his attempts to learn. But my job at that point was, like we talked about, my job wasn't so much in getting him a job. That would be the final outcome. My job was to help him get past his fear, get past his barriers. So if I would go back to what we talked about, what would be a good description of my position is to get past the vocational and educational barriers. And that's what I did with him. I helped him. Literally, we didn't talk about applying to any jobs. We didn't talk about going to network. We didn't go to any career fairs. All we did when we met for appointments is we just got on the computer, and we just talked about, okay, what's that mean? Okay, what's capital? Where's the capital tab at? Where's how do you click into a link? Just things that are just commonplace for us who've been using computers. And so, long story short, he finally got an opportunity. Somebody called him up and they wanted him to come in for an interview. He goes into the interview. And of all things, ironically enough, what do they ask him to do? They asked him to go, and he said, well, we like you, but we want you to go and take an assessment. It's online. We want you to take that assessment, and contingent upon this assessment, we'll either let you know if you're hired or not.
Yeah.
Again, the one thing that he's so afraid of. Unbeknownst to me, I knew he was going on an interview. I helped him with the clothes, attire, the whole nine. He goes on the interview. I found out the next day that they wanted him to do the assessment. Not only did he go in and do the assessment on his own, he passed it with flying colors. He said he wanted to try it on his own without me.
Wow.
He got the job.
Awesome. Yeah.
So that's just a small, but it kind of fell in line with what we were talking about. But that's just a small success stories. I have other success stories, a little bit more deeper, darker.
We got time if you want to share one.
I surely can.
Yeah.
I had another client. How can I put this? She was from the other side of the country, California. She came here to move away from, how should I say, her, she was involved with sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. It's all she knew.
Involved in what way?
Involved in the sense that she would utilize her body for money.
Okay, but she wasn't one of the people forcing. She was a victim.
She was both a victim and she became a person.
Right.
She was both, yeah.
Both, okay.
So I was trying to play it right down the middle.
Yeah.
But she was both a prostitute, and she was also a person who, once she figured out that she could do what her pimp was doing for her, then she was now doing it in a different way, but yet nevertheless it was the same.
Yep.
But she started, while doing that, using narcotics and opiates, and next thing you know, she was addicted. She went into a program. She had went into a couple before she had gotten to me, and once that happened, we just started talking about just doing things the right way. My thing with her was, because what helped her to turn her life around was religion. She had started to get into religion. So again, the most important thing in any, I would say any therapeutic position, is to have rapport, to develop rapport and a trust system and connection with that particular client.
Yeah.
In my case, many clients, but nevertheless, it still exists. So my thing, which is why I think the career consultation is so very, very important, is to sit down with them and find out what are some of the intricacies, what has happened with them in their life. Sometimes just letting them talk and listening is much better than asking them, chart questions that you can just check off. Okay, this person has high school diploma. Okay, this person has no transportation. That's telling me so much. So my thing was just listening to this person, and in that I found that she had developed a good relationship, a spiritual relationship. So I honed in on that, and what I wanted to do with her was every time, which was quite often. I mean, let me skip a couple beats here. Mm-hmm. I helped her find 5 jobs in probably the year that I worked with her. 5 jobs. Not talking about just she went on an interview. No, she got the job.
Yeah.
Then something went awry. She lost the job. I helped her find 5 jobs. And so ultimately, every time something didn't work out, we'd always have to reflect back on what's the right thing to do. So what I was doing was I was targeting her moral fiber, as opposed to, hey, don't do the narcotics because it won't be good for you, because it's not going to be conducive to you in your recovery. What I did was I just concentrated on the moral aspect. And so what we ultimately found out was that she liked what she was doing before. That's why it was so tough for her. So she was fighting.
Tough for her to leave it, to escape it.
Tough for her to leave it. Yeah, she liked it.
But also it was that comfort, that she was comfortable with it, she was familiar with it.
That's all she knew.
Yeah.
So that's all she knew. In fact, even her family knew she was doing it. So it was something
you weren't going to find her a job in that field.
No,
you weren't.
And unfortunately, she's asked about that. Hey, Clay, could you help me with this? It's not so much doing this; it's just this aspect. Yeah. So again, we always had to go back to the moral aspect. Wouldn't be that she couldn't make money doing it that way, because she probably could. We had to go back to the moral aspect. Is this the right thing? How does a spiritual advisor feel about that? How do you feel about that spiritually? Is that something that you feel that would be right in your eyes? Is that something that you really would be comfortable with? So after constantly using that, finally hit home. And she's moved again. But I have to say that as we went on working together, she got so much better and better, where she was making the decisions that I was helping her make before we would even get together. So I think at the end of the day, from my position, that's what I want to do. I want to get them to a place where they're able to understand, hey, listen, I know what's right and wrong. It's not that. It's the decisions that I make. So so that was one of them too. I can continue on if you want me to keep going.
Well, I think the thing that and I hope you found that sometimes when you have those success stories, and the people that I've spoken with and met, and going back, we talked about the book earlier, the book Voices from the Fallen, where we have 8 different families and people that have gone through addiction and come out. But what I found is a lot of the people who've gone through a program, gone through recovery, they have a real burning desire to help other people. And there's so many people who become a counselor or become working for a program. We've had guests here on the podcast that have said, I was in the depths of my life and in the deep, darkest points of addiction, but now here's what I'm doing. I work for this program. I help other people. I coach people. And that's a wonderful thing. That's the ultimate success, right? When now you have other people being helped by somebody who experienced the same thing.
Exactly.
I would think that perhaps you must have some people who go through the program who find themselves with that same burning desire, the same passion to help other people through it.
I do.
Yeah.
That happens much more than the incidences that I just talked about.
Yes.
The incidences that I just talked about, those aren't the things that happen every day. The people that you're talking about are most of the clients that I work with. A lot of them, are successful in the sense that they've gotten to a point where they have a little bit of control. And so what they want to do, since they've gone through this, they want to give back.
Yes.
And they want to be able to go ahead and help other people, make some of the decisions not make some of the decisions that they made. They want to go ahead and talk to some of the people because they've been in their shoes. Right.
Yep.
So there's a actual program that is with the state of Connecticut. It's called CCAR. And it's a program where they have people, and they have a program that helps people come. If I'm not mistaken, they're called, I can't think, it's on the tip of my tongue. I will be here all day before I figure it out.
It'll come to you later, yeah.
But they're called, it's for lack of a better expression, it's a counselor, but they're helping people who have addictions. And so they have a special scholarship program where a person can go through a couple months, and then they can actually go ahead and get a certificate and go get paid to go do that. But before they do that, they have to qualify for that particular program. And how they qualify is by volunteering, getting on the phone, talking with people who are calling up. There's a distress number, much like 201. And I don't know what it is here in Massachusetts, or 211.
211,
yeah. But my thing is the program invites people who have been in recovery, both early, mid, or long term. They invite them into that program, and at different stages, because we all know it's all about where you are, right? Everybody in their own time, right? Nobody goes and gets clean in the same time as another person.
Right. Different programs, different time frames. There's no standard
different
expectations.
experiences, traumatic experiences, whatever the case may be. So what they do is they put them in that program. They actually go ahead and have them volunteer. They have to do X amount of hours before they can qualify to go into that, that professional counselor position, which is so needed, especially in my region.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think with that kind of a thing, I think, somebody can relate to that person who's been in their shoes. Like you said, they can say, okay,
yes,
this person understands me.
Yeah.
Because they've been through it before. And the other side of that is you would think it provides some hope, because I know many times it's hopeless, because I'll never get out of this. I never, until they want to, but I just don't see any way out.
Absolutely.
But others can say, well, hey, I was there too. Look where I am today. I'm sitting in the other chair helping. And so maybe, again, that in turn, that person can find their way through and see that. And I think it's also therapeutic to tell your own story and think that your own story is actually helping somebody.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
Excellent point. This is why I always talk to clients about, even after finding work, even after being able to somewhat get back on their feet and being able to accomplish some of the things they were before.
Yeah.
Therapeutic service is of the utmost importance. You really need to still meet with a therapist. You really still need to meet with a counselor. You still need to go into groups and to express some of the things you just talked about. It's cathartic in one sense, where you're able to talk about some of the things that you've encountered, even when you are clean and sober. But it's also something where you can give back, even at the level of just being in a group, where maybe there's somebody that's new to that group, doesn't know what it's about, doesn't know how it can be beneficial, and yet you're the one that's helping them.
Yeah.
You see? So I'm always promoting, this is why I love what I do, because it's such a team effort. Going back to football, I like being part of teams. This is why I got into theater, because theater is very much like a sports environment.
Yeah.
But in relation to what we're talking about, they're really trying to help people, everybody within the therapeutic system. So my job is not just to do my job, but my job is to do it accordingly and try to make it coincide with what the therapist is trying to work with them. The actual caseworker, the clinician, the prescriber, right? What about those people who have to go get methadone every single week? They're on a whole nother level as far as like being able to make sure you're dealing with them in an appropriate way, right? Because there's timing on when that takes effect. So not only can they not work at certain times, right? They're not also going to be completely coherent at a certain amount of times.
Right. Right. And I think you take the steps at a time. And you said something earlier. It stuck with me. You said you need to overcome the barriers
Absolutely.
before you can get to the final outcome or your desired place to be.
That's correct.
Over those barriers, it could be fears, it could be discomfort. Overcoming those then allows you to take the next step. You don't just leap over all that.
No.
You know.
It is all a step process. That's a great, excellent point you just made. There's no skipping any of it.
Yeah.
It all matters.
But it's one thing at a time. You say overcoming this step, this barrier, and then the next one, and then you find, okay, you've cleared your way through, and then eventually, and again, finally getting to those success stories or the people who have worked through the step by step. There's no shortcuts. That's the point.
Yeah, they'll be the first to tell you there's no shortcuts.
Yeah.
They'll be the first to tell you.
Yeah. And now, just to switch gears a little bit, I know we talked about the Jack Jonah Foundation earlier, and the Jack Jonah Foundation works with several different programs, a lot of them local in Western Massachusetts, but also, too, even though we talk about Western Massachusetts programs or Connecticut programs, the programs that you're talking about, there's national variations of this. Even the Jack Jonah is a national organization, but they just happen to have a lot of more local connections. So anybody who's listening to this, certainly, again, even the Jack Jonah Foundation, which is jackjonahfoundation.org, and anybody who wants to be interested in it or participate or donate, please feel free to visit jackjonahfoundation.org. And also, why I'm even bringing this up is because we have that walk, which is scheduled for May 14th, a week from our discussion here.
Right.
And but and I'll give you the details. It's May 14th, starts at 9 a.m. The walk itself starts at 11. It's at the Ashley Reservoir in Holyoke. And if you want more information about it, jackjonahfoundation.org, and you can register for the walk. Just hit the register button and put your information in, and the more people we have registered in advance, the better. And to find out more about what they do, and I know, again, you're involved. You're planning on being there. We'll see you there. And I had knee surgery recently. I'm not sure if I'll be walking. It's a long way. I'll be wiped out. But actually, we're going to have the book available too. And talk a little bit. I'll have a table. We'll talk a little bit about the podcast. Maybe we'll have the book available too. And in fact, we are going to have the book available. We're going to have all the proceeds from the book sales that day go 100% to the Jack Jonah Foundation.
Awesome.
To help with their cause.
Awesome.
And it'd be good to see you there too.
I'm definitely going to be there. I'd like to be a part of, promoting the book, and in the addiction, the plights of those who have addiction. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, but I specify in opiate addiction. So I believe. That's what the movie was about, right?
Yes.
About a person who had an opiate addiction. In fact, not one person, but many people. And so that's why there's such a close thing to my heart, So I would definitely want to be a part, in that aspect, in whatever way I can. And then just seeing some of the people that I haven't seen in such a while, very close group of great hearts, all the people that I...
A lot of new friends we all made. Right?
Yeah. Just like no project that I've ever been on before. Like everybody was just, from day one, was just like family.
And it's Kirk Jonah, Courtney, Sue, and Les over there. Les, our technical director, who's supported that movie quite a bit. In the town of Agawam especially too. But it's going to be great, and we'll have a great time, providing the weather will be, it's rain or shine. I think we're just going to do it. So so I hope we get a good turnout there, because I think again the Jack Jonah Foundation is involved with many organizations regarding addiction, so we hope people can support it. And I know what we'd like to do, because we could talk about the success stories from your program, and I love talking about those. Those are great, and I think we would love to have you back again. We'll talk more about updates with the program, more of those success stories, and then maybe we'll do a follow-up too in a few months. So
what I'd like to do as well, I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
But what I'd like to do is bring in maybe a person
Mm-hmm.
that was a success story, and have them maybe talk about some of their trials or some of the tribulations that they've gone through to get to where they are right now.
Yeah.
I have a couple of candidates in mind actually, but so I'm pretty sure you can make another seat available.
I think so. Yeah, yeah. But and that's why we have people sharing their stories, because of what we talked about. If people share their stories, and what we find is that it becomes, in many cases, relatable to people. They say, "Hey, that sounds just like what we went through, what I'm going through, my brother went through," and maybe there's something I could learn from that. And maybe there's information I could hear how they made it, and that means more than me and you talking.
Yeah.
I mean, it means more than anything. And what I found, that's why, that's why we wrote the book. That's why we're doing this podcast. So yes, we're always open to having people on who are willing to share their stories, and help people listening. Yeah. So
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, great, man. It's always great having you. Good to see you.
Great seeing you.
I always love talking with you.
Yeah.
And we'll keep updated. We'll see you next week at the walk.
Yes.
And
It starts on Saturday, correct?
it's a Saturday, May 14th.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, yeah. Because I think, what was it? Well, not last year because of the COVID and stuff like that, but the year before, it started on it Friday, I think it was?
Good point, because, we had it in May of 2019, and that was great, and it had great turnout, but then we all know what happened in 2020, 2021, so this is the first year we're having it after the initial year, so good to get everybody back on board. So... Great. All right. Well, thanks again for coming. Can't wait to have you back. And everybody else, thanks for listening. We'll see you soon. See you next week. Thanks.